A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. If you need a website or a domain, go to squarespace.com/James for 10% off your first purchase. Hello everybody, I've bravely waited to do some recording until I'm going downhill, although there's an uphill bit up here. I'm back in Snowdonia, as you can probably tell, after a little Snowdonia hiatus, what with Antarctica in Italy, and I'm very pleased to be back out on my bike today for the first time in ages. I'm very much a fair weather cyclist, so big hill. I always check the calendar before I go for a bike ride, and if it's winter then it's a no-go. Right, that's a massive hill, so I'm going to stop. I can't ride up that and talk at the same time. Anyway, today is a three-pronged day. 3 goals, bit more fitness, because my fitness is horrific. Last night I was unloading the dishwasher and felt out of breath. Number 2 is to do some location scouting for this area, preferably for when there are trees around, so hopefully a couple of months' time. And number 3, to work out if this new camera bag that I've got on is a decent solution for riding the bike. I'm not too fussed about taking actual photos today, on the basis that, I don't know, the last 2 videos I've probably shown you over 50 photos, maybe. And in the Venice video last week, lots of you have asked me if I could show some editing that I've done on the photo. So I'll do that in a bit in this video. But yeah, first off, try and work out how this camera bag is going to work. Pretty nice place to live, eh? That'll be a nice shot in summer. One early morning, maybe. Right, well, I'm next to a river, as you might be able to see. It's not raining, and I'm out on my bike, getting a bit fitter. What a time to be alive, and I look great, as I'm sure you can attest. Now, yes, this is the new camera bag. It's an Evoque. Probably should have learnt the name, but it's a dedicated hip or bum, or whatever you call it anywhere else, camera bag. And in it, well, I can show you what I keep in it, but basically my A7R4 and the 24-70 today, and this little Sony, which is a ZV-1. I've talked about this camera a bit and why I don't like it, but it is quite a good video camera. Stop waving a banana around as well. Now, the reason that I bought this bag is that I think cycling, as you'll know if you've watched this channel for a while, is a fantastic way to get around for photography, because you can get to an awful lot more places than you can on foot, and in some instances with a car. For instance, I spend a lot of time driving on roads like that we've just come down, and I end up thinking to myself, right, where can I park? I've seen a brilliant thing to take a photo of, but there's nowhere to leave the car other than in the middle of the road. And I end up getting about 5 miles down the road thinking, well, forget it, I'm not walking 5 miles there and back for a fairly average shot. So I just don't end up taking a photo in the end. Whereas on a bike, you don't have that problem. So I think it's the perfect medium a lot of the times. I wrote about that quite a lot in my last book. Anyway, the problem that you find, or I have found, when you end up getting a bike is thinking, well, how am I going to carry the camera gear then? Hear this helmet strap rattle around. And you might be able to see that I've stuck the tripod on the frame of the bike, which works quite well, those orange straps. And yes, I don't like tripods, but you need one for video clips like this. So that works quite well, but sticking camera gear on the bike I found doesn't work quite so well, particularly if you're going to be doing bits of kind of byways and off-road bits where there's lots and lots of vibrations, because cameras typically do not enjoy vibrations. So typically I've found that if you want to cycle while carrying camera equipment, you're best off doing it on your body, particularly when you're going off-road. The trouble with that is, even if you have a backpack like the rotation backpack that I use quite a lot, is you have really easy access to your gear, which means, like before, if you see a shot, you can just pull the gear around your body. You don't even have to get off the bike to take a shot. But with a backpack, well, your back just looks like you've gone swimming quite quickly with sweat, which is disgusting. And also backpacks are fantastic for carrying lots of gear, and so typically you find, if you're anything like me, that you do end up packing lots of gear, and then your shoulders hurt and the bike ride quickly becomes not much fun. So happy medium is that you can carry things that don't mind vibrations, such as a tripod, on the bike, and you carry the camera on your body, but in such a way that it doesn't mean you have a really sweaty back. So this, the Evoque, whatever it's called. Now, with the help of my trusty GoPro, let me try and show you how I pack this bag. So, currently there's a banana in it, but in here sits the A7R4, which I'm currently filming this bit of video on. Then, in this little bit, I've got the ZV-1. Now, I'm thinking that there are lots of ways that I could pack this. I could probably even use the 50mm and the 20mm combination that I was using in Venice last week in here. But basically, that gives a quick and easy access solution to my most commonly used camera gear. And in here, just this little bit, bear with me a second, lots of room for batteries, spare cards, all that kind of stuff. Fantastic. And there's a water bottle holder around here. And actually, there's holders around the waist belt as well for things like my Garmin SOS thing. So yeah, this tripod mount I think works pretty well on the bike. I mean, I don't need it lots, the tripod that is. I just need it when I'm doing camera pieces like this, and I suppose if I was shooting at night. But that really isn't often when I'm on the bike. So I think that works brilliantly. What I would like to do is find a solution whereby I can also carry a telephoto lens. And I think I could do that in one or two ways. Either I could use this bag to carry the telephoto lens, and then I just carry the camera on my body with a camera strap, or I use this front bag here to carry the 70-200, which goes against everything I've just said about having your camera gear on the bike. But I think if I was to wrap it up well enough, GPS telling me I'm going the wrong way, if I was to wrap it up well enough, I think maybe that would be safe against vibrations. I just don't know if the 24-70 or the 70-200, sorry, rather, would fit in there. I'll have to try that when I get home. But yes, in short, that is how I'm thinking about currently carrying camera gear on my biking trips. But any further suggestions, do let me know. And lastly, for those of you interested in cycling with a bike and wanting to know what this bike is, as you might remember from a few videos last year, this is a Mason Boker, and it's a fantastic kind of gravel type bike. I've currently got 650B wheels on it, which I think works brilliantly because it means you can have massive tyres. So these are 47mm wide WTB byways, which work brilliantly because they're basically slick in the middle, and then they've got knobbles on the sides for bits of gravel. I've been assured that they're fantastic for British summers, but given that it's kind of middle of March, I might have gone a bit early with these. I suppose we'll see. But yeah, absolutely fantastic bike, and it means that you can go more places than you can on a road bike, but it's much, much faster on the road than a mountain bike. So a real happy medium for me, this, I think. Right, I'm just testing this bag, and I reckon if I put a glove at the bottom, and then there's a bit of a squeeze. And then a glove on top, like so. And the lens doesn't wobble about that much. So that might be vibration proof. That said, it is going to be quite difficult to get in and out. I'll just have to hope, maybe if I use this system, that I don't need the telephoto that much. Any other suggestions? Anyway, I was going to show you some editing from Venice, wasn't I? But before I do that, workshop. So I get asked a lot if I've got any workshops coming up. The good news is I do. It's in June, and I can't quite fathom just how many locations, bucket list locations, are being squeezed into one trip. So aboard the Greg Mortimer, which is the ship that I went to Antarctica on a few weeks ago, we will start in Scotland and we'll go from Aberdeen to our first stop, which is the Orkneys, islands that I've wanted to visit for a long, long time. From the Orkneys, we'll go to the Faroe Islands, which everybody knows is just an unbelievable location for photography. From the Faroe Islands, we'll go to Jan Mayen, which is a volcanic island in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Looks phenomenal, dramatic, and just, again, an amazing place for photography. And then after that, we'll go to a place that I've wanted to go for literally years and years and years, Svalbard. And hopefully there, we'll be able to get a shot or two of a polar bear. And all of that is in one trip over the course of just over 2 weeks, I think. It starts on the 5th of June from Aberdeen and ends, well, 16 days later in Svalbard. So if you're interested in coming along, then definitely register your interest sooner rather than later with Aurora Expeditions. And if you book before the end of March, you'll also get $100 credit on board. You can also ask me questions either via email or Instagram DMs, probably the best ways to get in touch with me. And yeah, that trip I cannot wait for. Also, I think we'll probably be doing another Antarctica trip in 2024, so long way off. If I have any details of that, I'll put a link in the description of this video, but I suspect it might be the next video. I don't know, but yeah, the June trip, can't wait. What else? Print sale. Massive thank you to everybody who's bought prints so far. I'm going to run that sale until the end of March, 31st of March. They are all limited editions though, so again, probably best to act sooner than later if you want a particular photo. Yes, Venice editing. So I had lots of questions in the video last week about editing the photos that I took in Venice. And basically, for a lot of them, I just used the free preset, which I give away via my website and newsletter. It's called Wash Green 2.0. That might be a new name. Might have been called Washed Orange at some point, I can't remember. But basically what it does, as you can see here, if I turn it off and turn it on again, is it accentuates the oranges in particular and just boosts contrast too. So if you're operating in places like this where you've got shadows and areas of highlights, it just accentuates that really nicely. Another example of that here, yeah, works really nicely for this. Not the intention that I built this preset for. I built it for kind of landscapes where you've got greens that you want to make slightly more orange and generally just much flatter scenes, but it does seem to work pretty well for this application too. Now it works great for this photo too, this photo of sheets that I took in the video last week, but if I add the preset onto the image of the sheets, you can still see some of the details in the bottom of the image, which I think is a little bit distracting. Now that's easy to remedy. You could, if you were being a little bit lazy, just use a brush and brush over the boat, for instance, and then take the exposure way down. And in this instance, that's okay because you're just brushing black around other areas of black, so you don't notice any kind of scruffy brush marks. That said, the better way to do it, I think, is to undo that. And instead of selecting a brush, what we'll do instead is go luminance range, and we'll try to just select the boat, which is probably the most distracting part of the shadows at the moment. So I'll just select here. And as you can see, it selects loads of the image, but as far as I'm concerned, that's okay at the moment. And then I'm going to go down and just take the exposure way down of all those areas. Now that looks pretty horrific. I've really overdone things with the shadows, but it's okay because I'm going to intersect this mask with a brush. And now you'll notice when I brush, it removes the effect from any parts of the image where I haven't brushed over. And that just means that I'm only affecting the areas that I really want to affect. Whereas with a brush, you're affecting the areas and all around the areas, regardless of any more specific selections that you could have made. So yeah, broadly speaking, that is how I edited pretty much all the Venice photos that I showed last week. The free preset and occasionally some tweaking of masks. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching this week, and don't worry, this is not going to become a channel about cycling. It's just that, as I said, I think cycling is a fantastic way to see more stuff and be able to take photos of more stuff, and therefore it's the case that I'll be using my bike an awful lot more going forward, particularly over summer, to get to photography locations. But I'm not going to be talking about cycling gear every week. It's just that I might be on a bike a lot getting to those locations, and you might have to suffer while I look like an idiot in a helmet. Also, a big thank you to the sponsor of this week's video, Squarespace. So as I mentioned, this free preset that I give away, I do it through my website and my newsletter. That's all powered by Squarespace. The workshop that I just talked about, I've sent a newsletter out this week. That again is powered by Squarespace. The sale that I'm running on my prints, that is all done through Squarespace. It is the most powerful tool in my business and the least stressful tool in my business at the same time. It's so easy to use, it's all drag and drop, and you don't need a business to make use of it. If you just want a place to showcase your work online, Squarespace is an ideal solution. And there are loads of templates that work really, really well for photography websites. You might want a blog, you might want an online store, and they can cater to all that stuff too. But if you just want somewhere to show your work online, I couldn't recommend Squarespace enough. Now, if you'd like to try it out, you can easily do so by going to squarespace.com to start your free trial. After that, if you'd like to make a purchase, go to squarespace.com/James and you'll get 10%
off that first purchase. So yes, big thank you to them for their continued support, and thank you to you for watching. And yeah, if you've got any suggestions on how I can carry my telephoto about without always having a wet back, do let me know. I'll see you next week when I'll be gallivanting around with not a particularly good camera. It's a fine camera actually, it's just a bit of a toy, but more on that next week. You might be able to hear a baby screaming. Probably go and check on him. See you then.